Welcome back, everybody. Daniel and Johnny for the the official Snorckl podcast, episode 6, I believe. Man, it's been we've been very inactive, I would say, the last couple of months. There's a couple of reasons for that. We've been extremely busy. Number one, we've been traveling all over. If Johnny's not here, then I'm not here. Johnny also went back to college, makes it more difficult. I was up north for a while, and then we got hit with a hurricane as well. So, and also I moved as well. So we've both moved. We've both been out of town. Both got hit with a hurricane. So.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, no pun intended. But we're back. We're doing a little chit chat here on the podcast for you guys, and it feels good. Feels good to be back.
Yeah, I'm excited to get something recorded. This is actually a little impromptu. I texted Johnny a little bit ago, told him to come over so we could do something. We've both been stuck in the house the last couple of days because of Hurricane Florence, unfortunately, in North Carolina. So we've actually been able to sit down and watch a couple of movies, two very, very good movies. First off, we watched Mad Max Fury Road, which is obviously from 2015, and then we watched, I was gonna say Resident Evil for some reason. We watched 2049, Blade Runner, 2049, 2017, just almost a year old at this point, which seems like we just saw it in theaters. And the main reason I wanted to actually do this podcast is because obviously everybody loves hearing and reading reviews and watching reviews and stuff like that. But I realized while I was watching both of these movies that not only do I prefer watching movies at home, but I also don't think that you can actually review a film effectively unless you've seen it more than one time and some time has passed, if that makes sense. I think when you watch it in the theaters, or first of all, before I even get into that, what do you think about my statement? Not to say that you can't review a film after seeing it one time.
Well, the first part of your statement, I 100% completely disagree with. I mean, well, that's your own personal preference, but nothing compares to watching a movie in a theater on the big screen. Like, the actual cinematic experience is untouchable. The no home system or fucking 4K TV or surround sound can compare to that. But I will say, I do actually agree a lot with what you're saying about reviews because, especially right now, the festival season going on, you got Venice and Telluride and Toronto, and all these big Oscar contending films are being premiered, and people are actually seeing them for the first time. And it's like, I follow these different film journalists and bloggers and stuff, and it's always, they're going into these showings, and then it's always to see who can post a tweet first about it and get their initial thoughts off. And then these websites and newspapers and stuff have these deadlines. They need the reviews out right away. And to me, it's just, and I've been thinking about this for years, but recently I have been thinking about it too. It's just, it seems, you have to really absorb a film. And I think you need time to digest it and think long and hard about it, because your feelings can change in 12 hours, a day, a week, a month. Not to mention if you see it more than once. I think to me, my feelings almost always change for better or for worse after seeing a movie a second time. Because I think that's when the strengths really come through, or if the flaws become more evident. So no, I definitely agree about that. I wish there was a better way of doing it. I think Venice this year actually did a pretty decent job where they actually had an embargo set up so that critics weren't rushing to post things. They could take their time. And I think you get the best feedback and reviews and comments when you have more time for the people reviewing them to actually digest and think about it instead of rushing to be first. Especially in this new social media driven world of film reviews and criticism, that's a bad thing, I would say, about it.
Yeah, a lot of big reviewers or media personalities or whatever either have, if they're not writing for a magazine or a newspaper, online source of some kind, they pretty much put out a blast on social media right away after seeing something. And I just think you have to let it settle in a little bit. I've not only have I overlooked negative things about movies because I've been a fan of a certain actor, director, whatever, but also just I'll get hyped up in the moment,
right?
And then I don't think about it long term. Oh, how am I going to feel about this a week from now, a month from now,
right?
A year from now. Perfect example was Mad Max. I was not a big fan of it in theaters when we first saw it, and then I was like, man, why is everybody hyping this up being one of the best movies of the decade and whatnot?
Right. And to be clear, that was the only time you've seen it before this weekend, right?
Yeah, I've only seen both of these movies twice. Once in theaters,
right,
and when it first came out, and then this.
So it's been 3.5 years since you saw Fury Road for the first time.
I was just caught. I was like, I was almost like I was hearing so much good press about it, where I was just like, I don't get it. Like I was just like, this is so weird, and why do these people look like this, and like what the hell is going on? Because it's that type of movie, it catches people off guard.
Yeah,
and I don't know why. Like I've had that like lingering feeling about the movie for 3.5 years, and then when I watched it at home, I just felt so much better about it. I don't know why, because I was looking to be like, I really don't want to see this. I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is good. And I'm like waiting for the moment where I'm like, okay, this is stupid, like I felt last time. But it never came, and the story made so much more sense, and it wasn't as weird as I thought. It actually kind of made sense how some of the people looked. I mean, it's outlandish, obviously.
Right. But I mean, it's like a fantasy almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it really didn't not make sense, if that makes sense.
Right. I mean, especially with something like Mad Max, you can watch this movie without having seen the others, obviously. I've only seen The Road Warrior, and this one, this was the first Mad Max movie I saw in theaters, Fury Road, obviously. And I had, high expectations because people were raving about it and talking about it. And I definitely had a better reaction to it than you did, because I actually saw it twice in theaters. The second time was with you. And I loved it. I mean, it blew me away, but this was also before I really, really got into movies and like film and thinking about it in a more critical way. And since then, I've had more time to grow and learn and mature when it comes to thinking about films and analyzing them and whatnot. And I've seen it at least 8 times now, mostly at home, obviously. And each time this movie, Mad Max Fury Road, it's just one of those films for me, especially as an action film. It is a genre piece, but it's so perfectly crafted. Everything about it. I mean, from the cinematography, obviously, which is beautiful, to the unreal stunts that they do. Which is crazy because I say they're unreal, but they actually did almost every single one of these things for real out in the desert. And the costumes and the makeup and just the vehicles that they built for this thing and the acting. I mean, in a action film, I don't even know if there's an action film that has acting as good as this one does, especially like Charlize Theron leading it with as Furiosa. It just, every time I watch it, it gets better. And it really is one of those movies for me where if someone asks, what's a perfect movie to you, or like, what's a movie that you wouldn't change anything about, really, I think Fury Road would honestly be one of those movies.
I'm glad you brought that up with the practical effects, because that's literally one of the first things I always harp on when I see a movie. Oh my God, the practical effects, there's like none, or there's way too much CGI.
Yeah.
This movie, one of the reasons I really liked it now,
yes,
since we've been getting in the last, I mean, we saw this movie like a year and a half, 2 years before we even started this channel.
Right.
So like we've watched, especially you've watched way more movies in the last 2 years than before this movie.
Than my life before that.
Yeah, so that's one of the first things I always harp on, and I just loved the fact, especially as I get older, I'm like, why do they just right away jump to CGI stuff?
Right.
I loved that this was real and it looked real, and I liked how the backgrounds were all like, you could tell that they legitimately shot in the desert. It wasn't some green screen.
Yeah.
If you go back and look at the behind the scenes for the Marvel movies or pretty much any movie, it's like straight CGI. You know what I mean?
And that's something else we'll touch on when we get to 2049, because that's another example of a film that defies that trend, I would say, that's going on more recently. But yeah, it's definitely, and not to say that there isn't CGI or visual effects in Fury Road, because obviously there's a bunch. But the way there's so much real stuff. So every single punch and explosion and crash and everything, they actually did that stuff. So then when you have to add CGI elements to boost it, it still feels real. There's a basis for it in reality that they used. And so that's what makes this movie so good, is that it feels real. You actually are worried about these characters. And it also gets into how it's written, because this, even though it's a franchise film technically, this was 30 years after the previous Mad Max movie. And so in that way, it's almost like a standalone, and it's not trying to do a sequel or make a ton of money. And in that way, I think obviously there's more freedom with writing it and the characters and decision making, because throughout the movie you're like, is Max gonna get out of this alive? Like, is Furiosa gonna die? Like, what's gonna happen? When you're watching Infinity War, obviously is an exception to this, but if you're watching Ant-Man and the Wasp or fucking Thor Ragnarok or something, you're not really thinking that any of these people are gonna die, right? You don't feel like they're in peril, or that Thor Ragnarok is an example. I really enjoy Thor Ragnarok. I think it's one of the better MCU movies, but that movie is I mean, who knows how many VFX shots are in that movie? It's so green screen and so CGI and over the top, and that works because he's God of Thunder and it's out in space and stuff. But that's just the kind of how drastically different Fury Road is, and that's what, especially as a pure action movie, it just is so brilliant and like it's prestige filmmaking essentially, but as a over the top, crazy, insane action movie.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're kind of getting into like a little review of it actually, because I know it's way after its release, but Jesus, this movie really holds up, especially in today where look how much stuff has changed. Like not even in just film, but like in the world in the last couple of years. Like it seems like nowadays every week brings a new set of advancements in film and TV and stuff like that. And for it to stand up even a couple years later, this movie will stand up 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now.
Right. That's another huge advantage of shooting with a lot of practical stuff and real stuff is that stuff's not going to look bad later on. The stuff that's all, I mean, look at the prequels for Star Wars. Those are like 95% CGI and green screen, and they already look terrible. The older Star Wars films from the 70s look better because they actually use real sets and models and miniatures and stuff. So, yeah, that's definitely a huge aspect of it. And like I said, that's another thing we'll touch on when we get to 2049.
Yeah, I don't think we need to give a number score for the movie because we're both praising it pretty highly, but it's up there. It's a tier 1 for sure.
It's 5 out of 5, A+, however you want it, masterpiece, however you want to put it. It's definitely, for me, it's the best action film ever made for me. It's one of the best films of the decade, one of the best films of all time for me, and as a favorite, it's one I can always go back to. I mean, I could watch it every month or every week, and I would probably never get tired of it because there's just so much detail, and I love the characters. I love going back and watching like their whole journey, and of course, that's not even talking about the action, which is always jaw-dropping, like no matter what. So
now we really, really need to dive into.
There's a lot to dive into.
Blade Runner 2049.
Right.
We rewatched this yesterday. My first time seeing it, since last year, as I said, about 11 months ago. And man, I love this movie. I don't think you can review movies properly unless you've seen them multiple times over the span of a little bit of time because I saw so much more stuff the second time and picked up on little story details like that I didn't pick up in the theater the first time. And again, the reason I like seeing movies at home more, it's so much more personal to me. When I'm in the theater, like I see people's phones and then I get distracted for like 30 seconds. And then I hear people get up and moving around and talking and I get distracted for 30 seconds. And then I get up to go to the bathroom and I miss 2 minutes of the movie. And like stuff like that. I try not to get up obviously ever, but it happens, And people are fucking assholes and are fucking laughing and saying stupid shit for no reason in the middle of the movie.
Right.
And I just get
I will say though, when we went to see 2049 the first time in IMAX specifically, I remember it wasn't packed for one thing. It didn't make a ton of money. But I think everyone there, especially as an opening night, like people were there to watch the movie. Yeah. Like it was a very good crowd. I think people were into it.
I will say for any movie, depending on how long it is, obviously, I'll miss anywhere from 5 minutes. I'll probably miss 5 minutes of the movie just from being distracted or paying attention to what other people are doing. I don't know why. It bothers me when I'm like around other people like that, especially when I know I could watch it at home. But seeing it at home yesterday was just like a completely different experience for me. Like I saw so many little extra details. I picked up on all the little story things that I didn't see the first time for whatever reason, or maybe I just forgot about them because I haven't seen the movie in a year. It was just from start to finish, every little damn detail made sense and everything was perfectly in place. And there's like a little switch halfway through the movie where like, oh, this character is obviously spoilers, which I don't care.
Yeah, this is 100% spoilers.
It's been a year, so
you need to go see this movie. Yeah. Don't listen to us. Go watch it.
Yeah, if you're listening to us and you care about film at all, you should have seen this damn.
Go watch this movie.
You think it's Joe.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling's
like
character.
Halfway through the movie, and then for the 25% of it, you're like, oh, this is Joe here that we're talking about. He's the kid of. He's the first.
He's like the chosen one.
Yeah, he's the first replicant born, basically.
Yeah.
And then they switch it, and he realizes that he's not. It's not him. It's the memory maker.
At the very end, yeah.
And all these little details, like Dave Bautista's character says, who I love Dave Bautista as an actor.
Yeah.
He says, "Oh, you haven't seen a miracle," and you're kind of like, "Oh, what does this mean?" And then.
Which is like in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. And then a little bit later, you realize what he's talking about.
Right.
You're like, oh, sweet. And then he runs into the memory maker, and she's like, oh, yeah, somebody lived these memories as she's having an emotional moment.
Yeah.
Along with him, because he gets angry.
Right.
And then you realize a little bit later after that, oh, someone did leave these memories, but it wasn't him, it was her.
Right.
So it's like they leave these little morsels for you.
And she also says, when he's on the bridge at the end, Officer KD6-3.7, when he's on the bridge at the end with the big Joy hologram, which is now an iconic scene, and they edit it so that those lines that are important come back. You've never seen a miracle, and she says, every. Or this is actually even before that when Freyza, the resistance leader, tells him, "Oh, you thought it was you. It's not. It's this girl." And they have that line that Anna Stelline says earlier, which is, "There's a little bit of every artist in their work," which is basically, at the time when she says that, you don't realize it, but it's kind of suggesting that she took her own memory and put it in there, even though she says, it's illegal to do that, officer. And so, yeah, that's the way it all ties together. And it's a great, and I really enjoyed the first Blade Runner a lot. It's obviously, at the time it came out, it was a huge, it was a landmark for special effects, and the cinematography is amazing and all that stuff. But I think this one is just so much better to me on pretty much every level, but specifically the story and the characters. I think Kay's story and his arc through this is just so good. And then, you have Joy as his confidant, and Love as the kind of basically the antagonist that's, out there hunting for Wallace. And we'll get into that, but yeah, it's just the way it comes together. And it's a mystery. It's a mystery film. It's and even though the original is film noir, it's in this one, it really is about who is the child. And halfway through, you think you know who it is, and through his detective work, and then at the end, it pulls the rug out from underneath you, and it just makes what happens after that so much more powerful. And the whole thing is just really, the way it wraps up at the end, it's just so good. It's one of my favorite endings. The whole, I guess I'll just hop into the ending real quick because I don't want to talk about it. But the whole seawall sequence where basically after he sees the hologram, he gets in his spinner, and they're taking the Wallace spinners. Love is on board with Deckard, and they're trying to take him off world. And Kay's hunting them down, and he blows up the two that are escorting him, and then they have to turn back around, and they crash on the seawall, and Kay lands, and he just starts shooting, and Love starts shooting. They start fighting, and Deckard's he has handcuffs on, and he's in the spinner, and the spinner's getting dragged out into the ocean, and you think he's gonna drown. It's like a ticking clock in the background, and Love and Kay are just beating the shit out of each other. And they're going at it, and the music and the cinematography, the way it's lit, and the fight is brutal. And there's this one great part where it's when Love kind of gets the upper hand, and she, right before she pulls out the second knife and stabs him, the reason she gets that chance is because Kay sees beyond in the background that Deckard is about getting ready to drown. And that's what as the audience, that's what matters. And she takes the opportunity, stabs him, kisses him, leaves him, and she goes out to rescue Deckard. And then obviously, lo and behold, Kay swims out there, chokes her to death, which is just, it's so good because usually in blockbuster movies, big budget movies, comic book, MCU, all that stuff, the ending of any movie is just huge spectacle, explosions, fucking green screen, CGI, and it's fighting to save the world or save a planet or a whole army or something. But here it's one man that's about to drown in the ocean, and these two people are fighting to see who can get him, and they're trying to kill each other, and that's it. There's no, oh my god, the entire universe is riding on this interaction. It's not a huge massive war or battle. It's these two people, and that's what I love about it. And like I already said, the way it's all staged and everything adds that other love. And it's just, every time I watch it, I've seen it 10 times now. Dan has seen it twice. Okay, I've seen Blade Runner 10 times. 6 of those was in theaters, and but even at home, it just gives me goosebumps. The music's so good, the way it's all done. I just love that. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie. There are other parts, obviously, that I love, but
I like too that I was watching after the movie. We kind of just let it play for a while, and it went to the behind the scenes type stuff. And even when they were designing the Las Vegas Strip and stuff like that, they went back to the original guy that designed a lot of the stuff from back in the day. They're like, oh, how would this look? Right. And they felt that it would be inauthentic if Denis Villeneuve or whoever just came up with oh, this is how it would look. They went back to the original guy. Yeah. There's just so many details. Even Niander Wallace, he seems kind of like a weirdo, but you'd have to put
he's definitely a weirdo.
He's a weirdo, but you have to imagine he's pretty much revolutionized the world, and people to kind of know
Yeah.
that super successful people, like let's say, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg and like Elon Musk, people
Yeah.
like that, they're kind of like weirdos anyway.
Well, I think one of the great Jared Leto said in an interview, I think, comparing Wallace. He said Wallace is like Elon Musk meets Genghis Khan, and I think that's a great comparison.
I like that they put in little touches too. When he first checked his new model, when she dropped down, and he was looking basically to see if she was capable of having a child.
Yeah,
He had
in the birthing chamber.
yeah, exactly. He had her
Really
come
creepy.
out with these little chips that she like put behind his ear. It's basically like biohacking, I guess you want to say.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like on the forefront of like
Reality.
weird technology going on now that people do.
Right.
But I can imagine, 40 years from now or
Right.
30 years from now, especially in that universe,
Yeah.
in Blade Runner universe.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that they actually showed something like that was actually kind of realistic.
They definitely. I mean, there's definitely a bunch of little stuff like that in there, and obviously they're building off stuff that was in the original movie, but they add so much cool new stuff in there too. I think the biggest advancement or the biggest new idea that they brought in was Joy, 100%. I mean, she's one of my favorite characters, and her like relationship with Kay and just the whole. I mean, holograms proliferate throughout the film. There's Joy herself, obviously. There's advertisements throughout the city. And then Vegas. There's an amazing sequence. Dan was talking about this, one of his favorites, but where they're in the casino fighting. Kay and Deckard are fighting each other, and there's this virtual, I guess, Vegas show, you could say. There's like Marilyn Monroe. There's Elvis. There's, I think, it's so cool. There's all these dancers and stuff, and they're all hologram, and they're like glitching out. The sound's on and off. They're fighting through it all, and it's so good. The songs that they use,
the sound is going in and out.
yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, we can't talk this movie up highly enough as well. Oh boy, I don't know. I mean, what's the next big movie? I guess we can segue into the next segment here. That one's to me, which we both kind of agreed. That one was. I don't think we could say it's better than Mad Max. I would say it's better just because I like the movie better.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they're about on equal with
Yeah,
each
I would
other.
say.
I think I prefer 24/9 a little bit just because sci-fi is my favorite genre, and I love Ryan Gosling, and I there's more. Obviously, it's a 2 hour 45-minute like epic story. Fury Road's a little different, it's tighter, I think, but yeah, I mean they're definitely about equal. They're two of the better films that I've ever seen for sure, for genre films too, especially.
I had Johnny kind of laughing too because we were kind of talking about Ryan Gosling and how he kind of just reminds us of this goofy, especially if you go back to like The Notebook. I don't even think Johnny's ever seen that movie.
I've seen it.
Okay, you've seen it. If you go back to then, that movie came out, I don't even know,
14 years ago.
whatever.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Dan's old.
Yeah. And if you just look at him, you're like, oh, there's this like this skinny, like goofy kid. Like,
Right.
you don't know that, 10, 15 years later, 14 years later, he's going to be one of the biggest actors in the world.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely The Notebook. I mean, obviously, I was really young when that came out, so I didn't have that same perspective. But
Like, I project him, and not to cut you off, I project him. There's not even a good comparison because I don't know that there's like a really like good-looking plus goofy guy out there. But I mean, there are, but
you're right.
I picture him as more of like a Joseph Gordon-Levitt comparison, like 14 years ago.
Right.
They're both
I
rather
see what you're
young
saying,
and
yeah.
like kind of good-looking guys, or
Right,
whatever.
right.
And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, not to cut him short, because I think
Right.
he's done a lot of stuff like behind the scenes that we probably don't know about.
Right.
But like, he's not perennial contender for like an Oscar. You know what I mean?
He's not like world class.
And I love
or
Joseph
anything.
Gordon-Levitt. I mean,
Right.
I like a lot of the movies he's been in.
But yeah, I mean, Ryan Gosling, he's just, even though if there are people would say obviously there are better actors than him, of course, like, Joaquin Phoenix or maybe even like Jake Gyllenhaal or Leo. But Ryan Gosling just, especially in this decade, like the last like 5 years or so, I mean, his film choices have been so good, and each film has been brilliant, and his range is so good. I mean, you have Drive, you have Blue Valentine, you have The Place Beyond the Pines, you have The Big Short, you have The Nice Guys, you have La La Land, you have Blade Runner 2049, now you have First Man coming out. And he's been nominated for 2 Oscars. He's on his way to his 3rd nomination. And he's making great money. He's making great movies. He's getting nominations and awards. And I don't know if there's anyone else that's doing that across the board. And just in general in real life, he just seems like a really down-to-earth, cool, kind of goofy, fun guy. But his roles are like so diverse, and it never really feels, I mean, La La Land, I feel like is the most similar to his real personality. But I think just comparing like Drive to him in La La Land, or Blue Valentine to 2049, it's just such he's so dynamic, I think, and people don't really give him enough credit for that, I don't think. But
we're super. That's the next big movie I'm excited about, is First Man, and he's kind of moved into, I don't want to say Mount Rushmore, but he's in that group of guys where like anytime Leo's in a movie, I'm kind of like, first of all, I know it's gonna be
sure. Yeah.
First of all, I know it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
And secondly, I've been watching him for so long, I'm like, man, I want to see this.
Yeah. I agree.
Tom Hanks was up there for a while, but I think a lot of his movies recently I haven't seen, like his last 5 movies probably. But Ryan has moved up into that group too, where I'm like, I know this movie's probably going to be good.
Yeah.
And it could be contending for an Oscar performance, you know what I mean?
Right.
Again,
I can't remember like the last bad movie, like flat out bad movie he was in.
I think it takes time too. You have to be in consecutive, really good,
you have to build
high
up.
quality movies.
Yeah.
You know? I think that happens to directors a lot more because they have their thumb more on the actual overall product being delivered than just an actor.
Right.
So guys like Nolan, I have to see his movies. I have to see Denis Villeneuve's movies. I have to see whoever, guys like that.
Yeah.
We're super happy to get to see those movies thanks to the hurricane because we didn't lose power.
Yeah, I've watched, I think 9 movies since the hurricane started.
Jesus Christ.
It's more than Dan, for sure.
I would say. Anything else you want to talk about? What are you excited about coming up? Obviously, First Man we talked about, which they showed before. What movie was it that we saw?
Oh, Mission Impossible Fallout. We saw in IMAX.
Mission Impossible Fallout, which we had our whole last episode of this podcast was about that movie. So go listen to that if you like.
Mission Impossible
or Mission Impossible. They showed the little, which I think we even talked about on that podcast, the scene where they land, where he steps out, because they showed like a couple minute preview or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a
sneak peek.
It's an edited like clip. Yeah.
Yeah. And he steps out and just like there's like no sound and he's just standing there and they didn't cut away from it and I was just like, God damn,
it looks insane. I'm definitely like, First Man's my most anticipated film of the whole year, even before all these other movies came out. And I'm super excited. Damien Chazelle is one of my favorites. Whiplash, La La Land, and Ryan Gosling, as we've already been saying, of course, is one of my favorite actors. So it looks awesome. It's definitely going to be a heavy contender at the Oscars, obviously. Gosling will get nominated, Chazelle will get nominated. The movie will be a Best Picture frontrunner. So definitely, it looks like it feels like, obviously there have been other space movies like The Right Stuff or Apollo 13, which I actually haven't seen either of those. But I think it also kind of compared to like Dunkirk, kind of. It's based on a true story, but it's really kind of has that Nolan-esque, gritty in there, like you're actually feeling like you're experiencing what's going on, that kind of thing. And I'm really excited because Chazelle's other 2 films have been like lower key, like music-based movies, and this I think is going to be taking him to that big budget. Even though this movie, I think, only cost like $70 million or something, which I'm not even sure how it's possible based on what we've seen, like with the visual effects and stuff. So definitely really excited for that. And a bunch of other films. The next 3 months are going to be amazing. I'm really excited. There's going to be so much good stuff. I mean, I can rattle off, the Bad Times at the El Royale comes out the same weekend as First Man, so I'll be seeing both of those. Then like stuff like Suspiria or The Favorite, or you have A Star Is Born, which is getting a bunch of rave reviews. Roma.
When does A Star Is Born come out? Like
October 5th, the same weekend as Venom.
Oh my God! Yeah, this next couple months are packed with movies.
It's going to be every weekend, so I'm definitely going to be there. I'll be, of course, I'll be doing my own reviews and writings, which you can find at davidsobczak.com. That's David, D-A-V-I-D, Sobczak, S-O-B-C-Z-A-K.net, actually, not .com. And you can find any reviews for movies there. Also on my Twitter handle, which is johnnysobczak. I post everything on there, and you can find a link to that. So definitely look out. I mean, I'm going to be posting reviews like nuts. Hopefully I don't die in the process because I also have classes going on. But I'm definitely really excited. It's going to be fun. And we'll definitely, I'll be getting back every couple of weeks from school. So we should be able to get more podcast episodes out, more reviews out for videos on YouTube. And it should be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of good stuff. So
yeah, guys, we also on Tuesday have the Captain Marvel trailer. Supposedly, I believe that's been confirmed, but I've seen reports that it's not confirmed as well. So who knows? Also, Mary Poppins and a couple other trailers coming out in the next couple days that we should get videos up for. I will get videos up. I'm not going to should. I will. So thank you guys. Again, this is just kind of impromptu. We wanted to talk about those movies because they, I don't know, they just kind of blew me away seeing them, so much after the fact.
Yeah, it's a bit of a retrospective.
So thank you guys for listening. This is episode number 6, the official Snorckl podcast. Daniel and Johnny. Check out the description. I got all Johnny's links in there. Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah.
We'll be back again. Thanks.
Thank you.